At a critical turning point in the book of Revelation, at the moment when the narrative has reached its most dramatic counterpoint, God does something unexpected. He does not send an army. He does not call down fire. He sends 3 angels flying through the middle of heaven, each one carrying a message, each one crying out with a loud voice. 3 messages addressed to every nation, every tribe, every language, every people on the face of the earth. And here is what makes this moment unlike anything else in the Bible. These are not merely predictions about a distant future. They are warnings being proclaimed to people who must make a decision about something more fundamental than politics, more personal than religion, more urgent than anything the evening news will tell you tonight. The first message reveals what God is doing. The second exposes what is already collapsing. And the third? The third gives one of the most solemn warnings in all of Scripture. Stay with me, because the third message changes the entire picture. Before we open Revelation chapter 14, we need to understand exactly where we are standing in the book, because Revelation has a structure, and that structure is everything. Chapter 13 shows you a beast rising from the sea. It receives authority from the dragon. It makes war against God's people, and then the whole world worships it. In chapter 13, a global system of counterfeit worship is fully established. The central question of chapter 13 is this: who will the world worship? And then chapter 14 opens. Immediately, God's direct response is 3 angels carrying the counter message. The world has its counterfeit worship system. God answers with his final call to genuine worship. This contrast, beast worship in chapter 13, answered by creator worship in chapter 14, is the structural spine that makes the 3 angels' messages not just interesting, but urgent. Worship is not a side theme here. Worship is everything. The first angel flies with what John calls the everlasting gospel. The Greek word is aionios, meaning the gospel that does not expire, does not change, and cannot be replaced. Whatever else is shifting in the final chapter of Earth's history, this gospel remains. And the message carries a specific sequence. Fear God, give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come. Worship Him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the springs of water. Notice what is happening here. The announcement of judgment does not replace the gospel. It arrives inside the gospel. God does not say, judgment is coming, therefore panic. He says, the hour of judgment has come, therefore worship your Creator. The call to worship is the answer to the judgment, not a contradiction of it. The gospel and the judgment move together. And look at what this angel calls people to worship: the one who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the springs of water. This is unmistakably creation language, carrying a clear verbal resonance with the 4th commandment in Exodus chapter 20, where God points to His creative work as the foundation of the Sabbath. That connection between the first angel's message and the Sabbath is one that many careful readers of Revelation have found deeply significant. In a world that has forgotten its Creator or replaced Him with something of its own making, the most urgent act is to direct your worship back to the one who made you. Then the second angel follows. One sentence, but a sentence that carries the weight of thousands of years of biblical history. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her immorality. Babylon, the name first appears in Genesis 11. A city, a tower, a project built on a simple but devastating premise that humanity could reach the divine on its own terms rather than God's. The Tower of Babel was not built by people who denied God existed. It was built by people who decided they would approach God their own way. By the time you reach the prophets, Babylon has become the empire that destroys Jerusalem, burns the temple, and carries God's people into captivity. And by the time you reach Revelation 17 and 18, Babylon is no longer a city on a map. She is a symbolic power, influencing rulers, peoples, worship, and commerce while opposing the authority of God. Rebellion, spiritual unfaithfulness, deception, persecution, all gathered under one name. John announces Babylon's fall as a prophetic certainty, using the language of an event so certain that it can already be proclaimed as accomplished. And the question this angel quietly places before you is not academic, it is personal. What are you still standing inside of that God has already declared will not stand? Now the third angel, and here everything changes. If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, poured full strength. The moment most people hear Mark of the Beast, the mind goes immediately to technology, microchips, digital systems, surveillance, and that instinct to look for a physical mark on a physical surface may be the very thing that causes us to miss what Revelation is actually pointing toward. Look at where the mark is placed, on the forehead, on the hand. The imagery echoes Deuteronomy chapter 6, where God told his people to bind his commandments as a sign on their hand and as frontlets between their eyes, connecting allegiance with both what a person believes and how that person actually lives. But Revelation goes even further than Deuteronomy. Look at what Revelation places in contrast. In chapter 7 and chapter 14, God's faithful people are described with God's own name written on their foreheads, and the beast's followers carry the beast's mark on their foreheads or hands. Revelation is placing two allegiances directly side by side, God's name on one forehead, the beast's mark on another. The issue is not merely identification, it is allegiance. And now look at the sequence in Revelation 14, verses 9 through 11. It begins with worship, then the beast, then the image, then the mark. The mark is not introduced in isolation, it is the end result of a worship decision, which means the real question the third angel is asking is not, will you accept a chip? The real question is far older, far more personal, and far more urgent than that. Who has your worship? And now, here is the detail that most people never reach because they stop reading at the warning. Because one of Scripture's most solemn warnings is so serious that readers close the chapter there. But Revelation does not close the chapter there. Verse 12. Right after the warning, John writes, "Here is the hypomone of the saints." That Greek word hypomone does not simply mean patience in the sense of quietly waiting, it means steadfast endurance, the kind of perseverance that holds its position under direct and sustained pressure. Not passive, active, refusing to move when everything around you is demanding that you do. Those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. After the everlasting gospel, after the fall of Babylon, after one of the most solemn warnings Scripture contains, Revelation does not end this passage with terror. It ends with a picture of people, real people, standing firm under enormous pressure, not because the pressure is gone, because they know who they belong to and they will not be moved. This is the point of the entire passage. The three angels' messages are not designed to make God's people panic. They are designed to wake God's people up before it is too late to choose. The gospel is proclaimed, Babylon is exposed, the warning is given, and then Revelation shows you the ones who heard it all and held on. So what does this mean for you, wherever you are right now? Not, go figure out who the beast is. Revelation chapter 14 is not pointing you toward a news broadcast. It is pointing somewhere much closer to home. What controls your decisions when obedience becomes inconvenient? What do you trust when following God costs you something you can actually feel? Who ultimately holds your allegiance? Not in your Sunday morning answer, but in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The message of the three angels is still going out to every nation, every tribe, every tongue, every people. The first angel is still proclaiming a gospel that does not expire. The second is still announcing that whatever has been built on a foundation other than God's truth will not stand. And the third is still asking the question that Revelation has been building toward from the very beginning. The God who announces judgment is the same God who provides the way of escape. The God who says Babylon is fallen is the same God who says, "Come out of her, my people." The God who gives one of Scripture's most solemn warnings is the same God who pauses right after that warning to show you his people still standing, still enduring, still holding the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And that leaves you with the question Revelation has been asking all along. When every counterfeit is stripped away, when the noise of the world finally goes quiet, who will you worship? That answer is still yours to give, and the invitation is still open. If this opens something in Revelation you have not seen before, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Bible Mystery Uncovered and keep us in your prayers. God bless you.